Hubris is a sci-fi adventure shooter that released for PC VR late 2022 with some of the best visuals in any made for VR game. The gameplay itself might be a little average, but the sci-fi world is well done with a feeling of being in a real alien planet like something from Halo or the Star Wars universe. It also has some great production values with NPCs you interact with that have got great motion captured facial expressions. Myst had a remake released in 2021 which has full VR support on PC and it has a Quest version. The PC version can be played in and out of VR, and it's one of the best looking games you'll see in a VR headset. This is quite a difficult puzzle game, and I will confess that I ended up looking up some of the solutions, but it's worth doing that if you get really stuck just to see the different environments, which look incredible in VR, with each world having its own theme that has great atmosphere. Red Matter 2 released for Quest and PC, and will be available on PSVR 2 soon. This is a sequel to an already good looking game, and even though this was built around the Quest, it's still one of the best looking VR games I've seen, with some really nice material effects on things like brushed metal. It's got ray traced quad reflections, and it's got some jaw dropping vistas like on the moons of Saturn and Neptune. These will stop you in your tracks just to take it all in. It's an adventure puzzle game with some light combat. It's one of the best games of 2022 and a must play. If you want to play a game where you literally get to fly through zero gravity, then Lone Echo 1 and 2 are what you're looking for. The first game released way back in 2017 and it was groundbreaking at the time, with movement where you actually grab the world and then you push yourself around. It's more of a walking simulator with you building a bond with Liv, your human companion, who looks very realistic. The sequel builds on the first one with a longer campaign and it gives you more to do with more tools and a massive open area you can explore. Westworld Awakening is a VR game I talked about recently, but in my opinion it's actually better than Lone Echo. This is also a very story-driven game with limited actual gameplay, and it's based on the TV series. It has some of the best fully motion captured humans that I've seen in VR, with incredible face animations, and there's lots more happen than Lone Echo. You get to meet and interact with more people, and for me, the story is one of the best in any VR game. Batman Arkham VR is one of the very early VR games way back in 2016, and just like Westworld Awakening, it has some incredible NPC interactions with really high-end AAA graphics and facial animations. You can also go into an archive to see life-size 3D models of all the characters from the Arkham games. This includes Robin and the Joker. Just be warned that this is short at around 90 minutes, and it is a little dated in the controls with node-based teleport. But if you ever dreamed of seeing the Arkham games up close in VR, then it's worth picking up on a sale and giving it a go. It also has one of the best endings in any video game I've ever played. Robinson the Journey is another very early VR game with really high-end AAA graphics made by Crytek. Again, it's got dated controls, and it's a walking simulator with some climbing, but the world, visuals and production values are some of the best you'll see in VR today. The best part is that it's based on a planet that's like prehistoric Earth, with lots of dinosaurs roaming around that you'll encounter. Seeing a long neck tower above you is something that'll stay with you forever, and it'll make you a true believer in the power of VR. Another much more recent game that features dinosaurs of a robot kind is Horizon Call of the Mountain on PSVR 2. This also has incredible graphics and AAA quality. This features lots of climbing, but also has some combat against robo-dinosaurs with a bow and arrow. I don't have a PSVR 2 yet, but my loins ache to finally get to play this game in VR. Horizon Call of the Mountain looks like the spiritual successor to The Climb. This is another early VR game by Crytek with really high-end graphics. The attention to detail in this world is great, with lots of life in the world like wildlife you can spot on your journey, or other people like a set of guys in wingsuits flying by you, or someone hanging out of a helicopter taking pictures. There's actually a sequel to this, but it's Quest only, so it looks like doo-doo, and the visuals were a massive part of the original game for me. Asgards Wrath was an Oculus exclusive on PC when Oculus was still funding big AAA VR games for PC. This was a 25-hour long epic with a strong focus on melee combat and some light puzzles. The environments are beautiful, and you get to embody some different characters, including some giants, and have a fight with a Kraken sea monster. Arctica 1 is another Oculus exclusive on PC. It was made by the developers of the Metro series, and this has a very similar vibe with a frozen, post-apocalyptic world. Lots of shooting with high-end graphics and a few scary moments set this apart. The only downside is that this is node-based teleport only. It's still fun, but I wish that I could move around freely. The last Oculus exclusive is Stormland. This was made by Insomniac Games, the developers of the Sony Spider-Man non-VR games, and this has some really great movement where you get to fly along clouds and you can glide in the air. You can climb any surface, and it really lets you tackle the different islands in different ways. It also has co-op. It's a shame that the game itself felt a little rushed, with a strange gameplay loop where the world resets if you don't play it for a while. Hitman 3 VR was originally on PSVR 1, but got surprise VR support for PC a year later. The VR support's a bit rubbish, with wonky hands, but you're still getting to experience the Hitman games in first person in VR, and that alone is worth your time, just to see these living and breathing levels and soak up all the details. Resident Evil 8 can be played on PC with a mod, but I'm not covering mods in this video. Luckily, it does now have an official port for PSVR 2. I played the game in VR on PC with a mod, and I can tell you that it's one of the best VR experiences that I've had. Getting to see the castle and Lady D's nuts up close is something that I'll never forget. Half-Life Alyx is my favourite VR game. It might even be my favourite game overall, and it has incredible attention to detail with so many things that you just can't help pick up and examine closer. It has amazing lighting, incredible pacing, with a story that will grip fans of the series, and personally I think this game needs to get a VR port for PSVR 2. Come on Valve, do something for VR, it's been over 3 bloody years. The Vanishing of Ethan Carter is an older, non-VR game that has some paid DLC with VR support. This is one of the most photorealistic games that you can play. It was actually made by Photogrammetry, and it still holds up as one of the best looking VR games available. It is more of a walking simulator with limited gameplay, and it's gamepad only. I personally played it stood up with a wireless gamepad, and I physically turned. You also want to make sure to crank the super sampling up, because it looks blurry by default. Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice is another non-VR game that got a VR version later. It's third person, but it's still one of the most incredible experiences in VR, with incredible moments that made the hairs on my arms stand up. There's actually a first person mod now. It's probably not going to be any good for the combat, it'll still be a good way to take in the views. Kayak VR Mirage is available on PC and PSVR 2. This is a very photorealistic kayak game with a few locations like the Arctic or the coast of Norway. It has the best water that I've seen in VR, and it's great just to chill on the water and slowly paddle around taking in the sights. And you also have courses against the clock, and you can challenge other people's times from the leaderboards. If you want to go under the water, then Freediver Triton Down has some of the prettiest underwater gameplay in VR. It also has the best controls, where you have to swim by moving your arms and escape from a sinking ship. I love this from start to finish, but unfortunately it's short at only 45 minutes long, so make sure to buy it at a price that you're comfortable with for a great short experience. Gran Turismo 7 is another PSVR 2 game with some of the best graphics. This is another game that I can't wait to play in VR. The attention to detail on the cars, the lighting, it just looks above anything that we have on PC, and unlike most races on PC, it actually has a proper single player campaign with cars that you can buy and upgrade. Most of the racing games on PC are either online only, like iRacing, or more sandbox types. Dirt Rally 2 is one of those exceptions, with a full career mode. Trying to drive a car at 100 miles an hour down a very narrow track, barely wide enough for the car, is extremely exhilarating. I find myself not blinking or breathing for long sections at a time because I have to concentrate so much, but there's no other experience like it. From driving to flying, Star Wars Squadrons is a AAA game with VR support. It's absolutely stunning visually with crazy amounts of detail in the cockpit. Being inside these iconic spacecraft in VR, getting to feel how cramped an X-Wing is, or being in the surprisingly spacious TIE fighters really does take your breath away. There are also sections out of the cockpit where you talk to other characters and you listen to briefings, and these are the most lifelike NPCs that you'll see in a VR headset. You can't talk about graphics in VR without mentioning Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's by far the most incredible flight simulator game available, with the entire Earth available to fly around. It has dynamic weather and the most realistic clouds and lighting. You just need to make sure that you have a fire extinguisher around for when your PC catches on fire. If you want something with a bit more action, then DCS is the most realistic modern fighter jet game. It has incredible attention to detail where you have to literally learn how to fly these modern aircraft with all the systems and switches from the real thing. If you want something a bit more arcadey, then Project Wingman is worth a look. This is ace combat levels of realism, with fictional enemy aircraft to fight, crazy weather storms with lightning, and cruise ships that fire lasers at you. A couple of games that didn't put on this list, which some people might have expected, like No Man's Sky, which somehow just didn't look that good to me in VR, even trying things on Ultra. You've also got modded Skyrim, which would be on this list, but I don't want to include mods, and I personally think that it deserves its own separate video, which I will do at some point in the future. And that's it. Let me know what other VR games you think should have made it onto this list. If you want to support the channel, then you can simply like and subscribe the video, or if you're feeling very generous, you can support me through Patreon for as little as $1 per month. Thanks for your support.